Today is Wednesday, August 12th, 2015, and today's rant will be, hey Jeb, the surge never even came close to even remotely working. So Jeb Bush has been spouting off some revisionist history, and I'm sure that Billy Crystal, or whatever that, William Crystal, is going to go in and do that also. There's going to be a lot of revisionist history on Jeb's side to justify his military stances, his foreign experience, and how what his brother did was really not so bad. So let's just take a quick history tour here. 2003, we went into Iraq, we declared victory, and then let's say for the next 3 years we were bogged down in internal strife, internal civil war in Iraq. Now let's go to 2006. You know, there's been car bombs all over the place. There's been IEDs. The military is now having new new Humvees designed so that they can withstand an IED even better and withstand even greater power from an IED. Now remember, the early IEDs were really improvised explosive device. IED were very rudimentary. They got better at that type of thing. So things in 2006 just sucked for the United States and Iraq. Nothing was going right. And a couple things happened in 2006. Number one, the Sunnis blew up the Golden Dome in Samaria, and the Shia didn't like that at all because that was one of their big holy places. And if the war wasn't on then, it was on after that. So what else happened in 2006? The United States handpicked a guy named Nuri al-Maliki, who was Shite, who had spent a lot of time in Iran, had been exiled from Iraq by around 1980, and had spent some time in Damascus working with Hezbollah. Yeah, that's who they picked. Okay, so his sole intention when he became, whatever prime minister or whatever of Iraq, was to further enhance the Shiite domination of the country with a tremendous amount of influence from Iran. And that's exactly what he did. Fast forward to 2007, W's got real problems. James Baker tells him he needs to get out. Everyone tells him he needs to get out. He knows that if he gets out, he will forever be nothing. And of course, the rest of his administration will be nothing. But so they decide to have a surge. Now, I don't know if it was General Petraeus who did it all or if it was some right-wing think tanks that did it all. But let's also realize that when those additional 30,000 troops went in, because in the surge, where did the term surge come? When they came in, now remember, Iraq is about 2/3 the size of California with about 30 million people. So adding 30,000 additional troops technically doesn't do squat. But from a propaganda standpoint, from a marketing standpoint, it sounded like this could really be good, and there was a lot behind it in terms of the administration push on it, that we need to give this thing one last chance to do it. Now, there were a number of things that were going on before the surge, before al-Maliki, before Petraeus, in terms of what was going on there, and these are the things that allowed W and the people in his administration to say the surge worked. So number one, there was a tremendous amount of exodus, I can't think of the right term, of people having to migrate within Iraq, meaning that people who were living in one neighborhood of Baghdad or in another large city, they had to move, and the reason they had to move was because the other religion was coming in. So where there had been under Hussein mixed neighborhoods all over Baghdad, those neighborhoods then started to become significantly more towards one of the two religions, Sunni or Shia. And guess what? The reason people were moving is because they were getting murdered by the other side. So there was a tremendous amount of displacement within Iraq. as many as, remember I said that there were up to 30 million people, 30 million Iraqis altogether, that up to as many as 1 million or more Iraqis had to exile within their own country, had to move somewhere else so that they could be safe. Also, remember from 2003 to 2006, there was an exodus of about 1 million to 1.5 million Iraqis who knew that they were going to be targeted, who knew that they had to get out, or also knew that there would be no future in them in Iraq, and they had to get out. So you had almost 10% of the entire population that was making a transition. At the same time, the United States was building, not walled enclaves, but partitioned enclaves, so that the Sunni and the Shia wouldn't go after each other at all. Now that did happen, but they were trying to prevent that as much as possible. Also, the Sunni awakening had also started in northwestern Iraq, where the Sunnis were getting tired of Al-Qaeda. Remember, Al-Qaeda were coming in, and they were doing things that the Sunnis didn't like they were, shooting women if they were wearing makeup. They were shooting, their brother Sunnis if they were smoking cigarettes or something. And the Sunnis didn't like that. So they were willing to work with the Americans to get rid of them. And the Americans, in the meantime, because remember, Brenner had gotten rid of the Iraqi army. And remember, most of them were Sunni. And they had a paycheck one day, and then they didn't have a paycheck the other day. And that's how Al-Qaeda really got started in there, and that's when W started it. And basically and I'll just make this real quick, Al-Qaeda, it was Baathists, it was Al-Qaeda, it was ISIS, or ISIL, or Daesh. So you had that happening. And they worked with the United States, and the United States made sure that they got some money. Maliki comes in, slow and behold, after a little while, he doesn't assimilate 100,000 Sunnis into the Iraqi army. No, he assimilates about 15% of them. The rest of them, they were all marked for being assassinated and murdered. And at the same time, Maliki had made a deal with Petraeus that Petraeus could go ahead and convince the Sunnis it's time to de-arm because we're going to take care of these Al-Qaeda people. In the meantime, the Shiite continued to arm, and the Shiite continued to murder and assassinate Sunnis all over the place. So a lot of that was going on. And then, of course, there was Matarik al-Sadr, who said that he was going to stand down his army. Of course, he was doing that because Maliki gave him the wink, wink. This is how we do it. You say you're going to stand down. We'll take care of you. We'll take care of the Sunnis. We'll get Petraeus to take care of their arms. Then at nighttime we'll go in and we'll murder them all. So a lot of that was happening, and what had happened since then? They had to move further away from the United States in Iraq. They went into northern Iraq and continued to be Al-Qaeda. When there was additional power vacuum in Syria, that's where they could rise up again. But remember that ISIL, Daesh, they're Sunni. All right, they had their beginnings in the Baathists. They then went to Al-Qaeda, and then they became ISIL. And it was all done under Bush's administration, and it was a complete failure because all of those things were happening at the same time, and it wasn't because of adding 30,000 additional troops. So it certainly seemed as if there was a lot less chaos going on in Baghdad at the end of 2007 or say 2008. But in the meantime, at nighttime, when the United States was holed up in their barracks, the Shiite would go out. They knew who they were going to murder. They knew who they were going to go after. And that's exactly what they did. This has been continuing. It's continuing on. Maliki wanted to have a religious theocracy in Iraq with help from Iran. That's what's going on. So everything that Jeb says about his brother and how the surge worked is gobbledygook.